Media and Good Grief Worldwide proudly present Grief Diaries, hosted by Linda Sheldon Fell and Angie Cartwright. Grief Diaries candidly discusses grief, uncensored, as we explore our losses, journeys, hearts, and hope for grievers everywhere. To listen to archived episodes, visit www.griefdiaries.com. And now your hosts, Linda Sheldon Fell and Angie Cartwright.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Grief Diaries Radio, a show dedicated to the journey known as grief, where we sit, talk, and share losses, journeys, hearts, and hope. Good evening, Angie.
Good evening, Linda. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm real excited tonight about our guest, and it's just an honor to be here tonight with her.
It really is.
I've been looking forward to it.
We are not taking any callers tonight, but I want to introduce to you someone that I have been following for a very long time, and I'm a big fan of. Tonight's guest is the very wonderful and amazingly gifted Lisa Williams, a world-renowned medium and clairvoyant. She has a wonderful, wonderful, beautiful ability to communicate with those who passed on to the other side. And she's born in England, so you're going to notice her accent. And Lisa was discovered by Merv Griffin, and so I'm dating myself, I know, because the younger generation might say, who's Merv Griffin? Well, Merv Griffin was a media mogul who really was at the helm of the entertainment industry a few decades ago, and in the 1980s, he came across Lisa and helped her to go on to have, 3 television shows, and very popular. And I first saw her back then, and I loved her just genuine, down-to-earth, lovely personality, and on top of her mesmerizing abilities. And so Lisa joins us tonight, and in 2013, I'll give you a real quick recap here, she launched the Lisa Williams International School of Spiritual Development. And through that, she offers classes and workshops and courses. And she also hosts a weekly radio show that she's been on hiatus from, but she's starting it up again here in just a few weeks in April. And she regularly writes about her life and spiritual teachings on her website, lisawilliams.com. She also has her community site, Soul Connections, which is really cool. She's an accomplished author, and she's been featured on Anderson Cooper, Oprah, The Today Show, Larry King Live, and Jimmy Kimmel Live, among others. I mean, she's really been around. And she joins us here on Grief Diaries Radio tonight. So welcome to the show, Lisa.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's an honor to have you. So, take us back to the very beginning. When did you first realize that you had a gift communicating with people on the other side?
Well, quite honestly, I didn't see it as a gift. And I thought everybody did it. I thought everyone could speak to dead people. That's how I looked at it. And I was 4 years old. So to me, it was very normal. Obviously, I grew up being a bit of a freak and a bit of a strange one, according to my parents. I really just sort of like embraced it. And I embraced it. I allowed it to manifest. And it was really when I was in my early 20s that I started to work with it, and I started to give readings. I've been doing it now for almost 20 years. So it's been something, well, in fact, about 20 years. And so it's been something that I have just loved doing and I've loved working with. So, and it's normal to me. So my freaky ways are normal. I love it.
So you were very young then when Merv Griffin discovered you, is that right?
Well, I wasn't actually. I was in my 30s. I'm 41 now, but I was in my 30s. I think, oh my gosh, it was about 10 years ago that I first met Merv.
Okay.
And like the younger generation, I had no idea who Merv Griffin was, because in England, we didn't know who Merv Griffin was. We had Bruce Forsyth and Cilla Black and all of these other different names, but we never had Merv Griffin. So when I was introduced to Merv, someone actually said to me, "You need to meet Merv Griffin." I went, "Who's Merv?" And she went, "Oh my God, you don't know who Merv is." And I was like, "No, I don't. Should I?" And she just said, "Just Google him." And I went, "Okay." And I remember saying, I was in LA, and I remember thinking, oh, he's just another fish in the pond, because of course everyone's a producer, an actor, or something over there, and so it was really funny, and then I just obviously read his bio, and I went, oh, he kind of owns the pond that the fish swim in.
And the
it was
fish
a bit
too,
of a
probably.
shock for me, and probably the fish too. So it was kind of a bit of a shock for me. Yeah.
And so he helped you get started, because he clearly saw that you were very talented. And you're also very, very personable, which makes you so refreshing and different. Being personable is one of the things that I was drawn when I first saw you on TV right away. You were just a normal person with an amazing gift. And, that's a really cool thing. But going back to your childhood, did the gift run in your family? What was your family's reaction to it?
Well, my family's reaction to it, I lived in England, so what happened is we came over to America for 3 months. And my family were just very open to the fact we were coming over to America for 3 months. And then obviously I went back saying, oh, I've met this producer. And they're like, yeah, whatever. And then obviously it just transpired for it to be more. And of course all the phone calls came along, and I'm going over to LA. What? You mean you're going, what are you going to LA for? And so it became all of this, it became a bit of a hype. And then when obviously the TV show came about, everyone was very happy. My dad was ultimately skeptical, because he is a skeptic and he doesn't quite believe in what I do. But it was really interesting how everybody just supported me, and quite ironically, and I don't believe in having anything being irony or anything. I believe in fate, but my parents, who I was exceptionally close to and still am, were moving to Spain at the same, and literally I moved to LA a month after my parents moved to Spain.
Wow.
And it was so interesting how it was all just synchronicity at its best that came about. So, they're fully supportive of me. In fact, if it wasn't for my parents, I wouldn't be able to do my work. Because they come over and look after Charlie, who's my son. So it's just amazing.
Right. That's wonderful to be well supported by your family. That's such a lovely thing. So,
Lisa, were you ever like when you said you thought people always saw their loved ones or deceased loved ones? Were you ever frightened of that as a child when that first happened for you? That never scared you at all whatsoever?
Of course it did. It did scare me a little bit. I think as I was younger, it really didn't matter because I didn't know whether they were dead or alive, or I thought they were kind of, I thought it was kind of cool. But could I differentiate between them?
Could you maybe share with us the first time and what you saw? I mean, what your experience was? I know the audience would love to hear how a 4-year-old would, have that kind of experience and the feelings they went through, and maybe what you saw and felt, and maybe how you responded to that.
This was quite interesting because, and the one thing that springs to mind, there was 2 occasions, one where this guy used to follow me in my bedroom and, would talk to me, which, is out there, and a lot of people know about how they would say, he used to say, don't eat your peas, you'll die, and, and for years, and even now I have a phobia of peas. And I later found out that my father's great uncle died choking on peas, So that was
wow.
Him. But the one thing that stands out really, really apparent when you ask that question was the fact that I remember we lived in an apartment block, and we were in the 3rd floor, and I remember looking out of the window. And I looked and I was mesmerized by, obviously there was a funeral happening, and I was absolutely mesmerized. There was all of these, rows of flowers, and my mum kept pulling me away from the window, and she kept saying, don't look at that, you're not supposed to, show respect. And I'm like, show respect for what? I can see people waving at me. And so I was just absolutely intrigued. Anyway, there were people waving at me. When I say people, these were spirits that were waving at me, standing by the flowers. And I think 3 people had died in an accident. I can't quite remember the ins and outs of it, but I just remember being I just remembered being so mesmerized by the fact that all of this grief was going on around me. Yet there were these 3 people standing there quite happy, dancing around these flowers, thinking, wow, this doesn't quite make sense. But I do remember my mum distinctively pulling me away and thinking, wow, this is incredible. So, yeah, it was quite powerful, absolutely powerful.
So that brings up a question. I've heard this question myself. Is that some people believe our loved ones are still in the cemeteries, standing around. What is your answer to that?
They're not. I mean, quite honestly, I've heard so many people, and I cannot tell you the amount of people who I still do readings for, who continue to go to the cemetery, who continue to take little gifts to them. And I understand that. But their bodies are there. That's all it is. It's just their body. Their soul is really with you. Their energy is still with you. Just because their body is no longer with us, they feel that that's where they physically have to go and be. And I understand that some people need to have a physical space to go to, and they need to have a physical space to remind them of them. But it's not the case. It really isn't. And you can talk to them at any moment, any time of the day, and they will always, always watch over you, look after you, and be there for you. Not just at the cemetery. In fact, I will even go as far to say that they're not at the cemetery because they don't want to. In my understanding and from my communications that I've had, very few spirits actually follow their loved ones to the cemetery. And the reason why is because they don't want to be associated with that body that has now left.
Ah.
Wow.
Okay. Wow. That makes sense.
That's changing for me right now.
Yeah? Yeah. How come, Angie?
Well, it just opens up a door to, and she even mentioned the word, I think you said it was your father, skeptic, that I've been one of those that have been skeptical in my past, and I'm on this journey now being open to anything and everything, and I've had my own experiences since my mom has passed. And when you say that, when you hear a lot in the world of we are not our body, it's just our temple, we're souls, we're spirits. You hear that kind of lingo, and and all those things just started to connect just at that moment. And so I think if there's grievers listening tonight and they feel that that's the only place they can connect with, some don't get to live right by it. I don't live right where my mom is buried. And so I think about those people that are listening tonight that are maybe hundreds and hundreds of miles away, maybe even across the world, that they don't necessarily have to be at the grave to be with their loved ones, So that
that's interesting kind of because comforting. I think that's just our culture, though, that burying the body is for many the last time they see their loved one, and so yet there's those of us who have had our loved ones cremated, and but the cemetery is a place that people go to. Pay respects. It's symbolic on so many levels.
Yeah, I felt like I left my mom there. I felt so much guilt for leaving her there, and I really did. It was probably one of the most intense feelings I ever had, Linda, was when we laid her to rest, and I still will go there. And
I've heard that by many grievers.
Yeah.
So, Lisa, what is your thought on that?
Well, I think really when people, with the physical body, let's talk about the physical body. The physical body is obviously the manifestation of the soul, so it has to come out in the physical form. And what we miss is we miss we miss the person, we miss the contact, we miss the hugs, we miss the communication. And so obviously it's what we last saw. It's how we last saw them. And so, you know, and I will just put it into context with spirit. Spirit don't hold on to that manifestation of that body. So when they do come forward, I don't actually know whether I'm answering your question, but I'm just giving you my opinion. When spirit come forward, they can manifest themselves looking however they want to look. So if they come forward, and like, for instance, my grandfather passed at the age of 86. You know, he had bald head, you know, a bit of a belly on the whole thing. But he'll come forward at the age of like 42, looking how he was in 42, with a full head of hair, and you know, like a Playboy pinup thing, you know, like he was like a man, you know.
I would pick the best wife too. You know?
I know, right? He's smart.
But, you know, so he'll come through in that way. So, you know, the body is really, that's gone. It served its purpose. But the soul continues on. And so what's actually happening is by them projecting their images to us, as a medium, I can pick up on what they used to look like. But they don't really care about it. And in fact, that's the ego part of the soul. And there is no ego in a soul. So let me just put it that way. Like I said, I don't know
that
whether
makes
I've
perfect
answered
sense.
the question, but it might help you understand and give you a different perspective to look at it.
So let me ask you a question, and this is one that's been asked. Do you do you work with people and talk to people about dreams? A lot of times the grieving, you know, the most connection we've ever had may be a dream. And I remember I'd had a dream, and I had, you know, of course, begged, desired for the dream for my mother to come to me. Was in desperation for the connection. She had just passed from a drug overdose. And then I saw her and was completely frightened and actually raised my voice at her. And so waking up in complete, you know, just that place and then just so afraid. I remember getting online and going to some dream groups and trying to ask, you know, did I chase her away? Because my reaction to her was not, you know, wasn't to me appropriate because I had wanted it, and then I thought I scared her away. Can we affect spirits like that when we're in distress, when we may be scared of them? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, and I'll give you an example here. I remember, and I'm kind of going to answer a question that you asked me ages ago. My grandmother always used to say to me, because she was a medium, she said, Lisa, spirits won't harm you or hurt you or be upset with you because they're a pure soul. And so therefore, if they didn't hurt you in life, they won't hurt you in their death. And exactly the same. So your mother's not going to judge you right now. But I do talk a lot about dreams. And dream form, when spirit come forward in dream form, it's because they're giving you a visitation. And so your reaction to that is because your own mind, let's look at it. We've got a conscious mind, we've got the subconscious mind.
Right.
Your conscious mind goes, but this is wrong, but I'm angry, but you know, you've got all of these pent up emotions. Yet the subconscious mind goes, oh, isn't that beautiful? I'm allowing my mum to come forward. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And so when we get the two merged in a dream form, now you remember when we remember dreams, it's because our subconscious is still into play, but our conscious mind is becoming more and more aware. So therefore the conscious mind goes, oh, this is wrong. And so therefore it twists things. And so what happens is, and I'm just going to address something because your listeners may have situations where they'll be like, yeah, but I dream about my loved ones and it's dark. And that is because the conscious mind is coming into play with the subconscious mind that goes, oh, it's wonderful, but the conscious mind goes, no, it's not, I've lost them. And so therefore it's twisting the perception of the reality. And our conscious mind is forcing us into being into that space. Now with you, what's happening is you're having that dream with your mum, obviously there's this anger, there's this, or whatever it is, these emotions that are being triggered. And so your conscious mind is analyzing all of this. But reality is, when we have a vision and we have a dream of our loved ones, it is because all they're doing is coming along to say, hey, how are you? What's going on? And the reason that that's happening is because when we allow ourselves to relax and dream, we naturally as a soul come out of our body. And so therefore we do this thing called astral travel. And we can meet up with anybody we wish. So we can meet up with our loved ones. We can meet up with our friends. We can meet up with our family. We can meet up anywhere. And so that is what happens. So actually we are having a visitation.
So to take that a step further, why? Because we've talked about the dreams and the visitations in the grief world, and some people are very upset that their loved one has not come to visit them. Mm-hmm. And why do some get visits and dreams and others not?
The majority of us get visits and dreams. However, it's dependent upon the fact of whether we remember them in that conscious state. So what we've got to remember is, as I said, two parts to the mind, the conscious and the subconscious. And the subconscious is where we are allowing our mind to just relax, our conscious mind to relax, and our subconscious mind to take over. However, if we are having those dreams and those visitations from our loved ones, yet our conscious mind is not ready to come back into come back to play, or we're not ready to wake up or something like that, or we're not in that space, then we're not going to remember it. I can tell you there's so many people that I have said to people and said, your mum dreams with you. And they're like, no, she doesn't. I'm like, yes, she does. No, I don't. I never remember my dreams. Well, just because you don't remember your dreams doesn't mean it doesn't happen. Okay. And that's the reality of it, because we dream all the time.
Right. And that makes sense. I do want to go back to, you talked about how, our loved ones, they're no longer in the body they had, and they can, visit us or show us in different, like your grandfather came, your great-grandfather, in a different, age that he was, younger and healthier and such. And so what do you think about those people that say a dragonfly or a butterfly, they're sure it's their loved one? Can our loved ones take on that kind of form?
What they can do is, I don't believe that our loved ones take on that kind of form. What I think they do is they influence us to look at a sign from them. So, for instance, let's talk a physical penny. Let's talk of a physical penny, which a lot of people it's a sign. So when we talk about a physical penny, that loved one cannot physically put that penny right in front of us. Okay. But what happens is, as we're going through life, we're walking along, we happen to glance down and we see the penny. What happens is our loved ones are influencing us to look at the floor and go, oh, there's a penny, or oh, there's a butterfly, oh, there's a dragonfly. And so through their influence, what we're doing is we're noticing these things, and it will be a consistent repetition of signs. So, for instance, you'll always see a butterfly, you'll always see a hummingbird, you'll always see something that will represent that loved one, and that is because, it's so important for us to see something that they can say, hey, you know what, I'm still around you, and that's what it is, and so. It's not that they manifest in that form, it's the fact that they're influencing us to see that form, to say, hey, that's my sign from my mom.
Okay, so what about, I'm going to take that a step further, and there are some who believe that their loved one is like turning the lights on and off, or this or that. Is that Are they able to do that?
Absolutely, because what they're doing is they're manipulating energy. Now, I love the word manipulation. I have to say, I'm probably one that, well, I'm not the only person, but, you know, because my boyfriend, we were having this conversation over the weekend, and I said, I love the word manipulation. He said, so do I. And I do. It's really weird. And it's about, the reason why I said manipulation is because we, as a medium and as someone who works with energy, what it is we manipulate energy. It's not the fact we manipulate people, but we manipulate energy. And that's the reality of it, is spirit manipulate energy to create that to happen. So if we think about energetic force, which being a light switch, being a TV, being something, you know, refrigerator. My refrigerator constantly knocks. They're energetic forms from electricity, which is energy. And so because it's the easiest thing that they can manifest, they can influence, and I talk they meaning spirit can influence that energy and that manipulate that energy to go on and off, or to change channel, or to listen to a radio and a song comes on, those sort of things. So that's what happens.
Okay.
That's why I love the word manipulation so much.
Well, that's a beautiful thing, and I just over the weekend, you know, Angie and I are involved heavily on social media with other grievers around the world, and I saw that someone had posted that they just got a incoming call on their cell phone from their deceased mother's cell phone, and like the mother had just passed just recently, and she, of course, when she answered it, there was no one there. And she said what was even stranger was she had her mother's cell phone, and there was no outgoing call from the actual cell phone, but it was incoming from her mother's line. So that you believe that was her mom?
I absolutely believe that was her mom. Absolutely. And I've got it where I've got text messages.
Really?
And it's saved. No, you have no. I will show that. I will show you these text messages when I see it, where it says unknown number and then message not found. And it's blank. And, you know, I've even responded back to that text message. And said, hi. Yeah, I've responded back to this text message saying, hi, who are you? And I've had an error message that comes back saying, no number is found. And I'm like, okay, who are you? And normally, and I've got two. I've got two at that point because I've had two messages like that. And it's amazing. And it's normally a case where I'm going through some stuff or I need some answers and things like that. So absolutely.
So Lisa, I have a question for you, and I think it's one of the hardest questions that many, many heartbroken grievers deal with, is why are there some that get messages and why others don't?
You know,
I think
it's very hard. Now, I'm going to answer that in two ways.
Okay.
With regards to signs, so we can always look for messages from our loved ones. And sometimes we can read a little too much into the signs, you know, because we're so desperate. We want it. We're like, oh, my God, I need it. And therefore what happens is the signs are all around us, but we question whether it's a sign. Because what we want is we want that message to be in our face. We want that person to stand in front of us, you know, slap us around the face and go, cooey, it's me, you know.
Right.
Reality is not going to happen. Okay.
And you know, Lisa, I think that my anger from loss, maybe being mad at God or whatever, I was so not open to having that. And I'm sorry if I interrupted you, but I was so upset. It was like this coldness that I had of whatever, to you know, because this in my own feeling was this God took this loving, and I've lost many in my life, another one of my loved ones from me, as I felt. And so, and it wasn't till, you know, through my journey that now I can look back and say, as I became more open, as healing began, and I became more open to being open, if that makes sense,
Yes,
the more
absolutely.
I started to see and feel and believe.
That's right.
Does that?
And I think that is very, very poignant, because a lot of grievers are like that. They're like, but why? But why? And especially if, you know, sadly I do a lot with parents who have lost children. Especially as they've lost children, it's like, well, why? Why did this person have to go? Why? If there was a God, why would they allow this to happen?
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
I completely understand that. But as I wrote in my book, Survival of the Soul, which is basically a book that talks about what happens when we die, we all have a journey. We all have a reason why we're on Earth. We have a reason why we've been born into the people that we're born into. We have a reason why we're born into that situation. And so for me, from my point of view, you know, this is powerful. This is so incredible. It's so powerful that we can learn from their death. We can learn from their passing. And so, and just to finish off that twofold question, because it's going to happen when we do the conference, where, you know, I will obviously do messages, but there will be a time where people are, but I didn't get a message. And that's not because your loved ones don't love you. That may be because your loved ones are like, well, you know what, I show you every day I'm around you. There may be someone else who needs it more. There may be somebody else who needs that message a little more. And so that's how I always say to people at these, you know, when I do messages, listen to other people's messages, because you'll likely get a message for yourself through someone else's message. And it's huge. Absolutely.
That's amazing.
Huge when that happens. Yes.
That's amazing. And you know what? I think about that it is sometimes through others that we start to get hope back. And, you know, I remember being so desperate and trying to connect with what I would call my people, which would have been at the time the grieving community, still are my people. But tonight, if somebody is in that darkness and in that place of hopelessness, where I've been so many times, and Linda's been there, and you yourself have probably been there, is to not give up on hope and probably try to place yourself, which I remember having to make that decision, to place myself around people who had hope. And, you know, when you're really hopeless, I'm a humbug, you know? Who wants to do that? You're all freaking happy. I'm glad for you. I'm glad you got a sign. I haven't gotten one, you know, and I'm closing my mind. But as I stayed, and then started again to heal, those things became open to me. And so tonight, thank you for sharing that, because I know our listeners, we have listeners who are sometimes they're a week out maybe, and they're in that darkness.
Well, as you know, there's 5 stages of grief. As you know, I mean, I think there's more than that. But as we talk about, you know, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross kind of put it together in her book Grief and Grieving, and you know, the 5 stages of grief. Anger is a stage of grief. There's that whole denial. And what we do is we split between the stages of grief. We're not just we're in denial, now we're in anger, now we're in depression. It doesn't go that way. We split, we maneuver in and out of them. And if you think about it, I mean, I lost my best friend, so, you know, which was also very hard. But when we think about grief, it is actually a beautiful experience. And the reason why I say it's beautiful is we maneuver in and out of these emotions that will have a massive, huge impact on us. And then when we become out into that space of acceptance, then we go, wow. And from that space of acceptance, we then can maneuver onto helping others, which is obviously what you ladies are doing. You're moving through your own grief into that space of helping and healing. Because what you're then doing is you're pulling from your own experience into that beautiful experience to help everybody else. And so I think the grief really just highlights certain things within us that maybe we need to work on, or things that we are trying to find an escape from, and things like this. But also, it makes us see the person who has just passed. Because let's face it, in life, we don't always like everybody. We don't always like that person who is gone.
No, we don't.
We don't. But in that space of grief, we see them for what the beautiful person that they were. It doesn't matter whether you argue with them just before they passed away, and you absolutely couldn't stand the sight of them. What you do is you go to that place of love, and it takes us back into that space of love, which is so powerful. And it takes
you just gave me goosebumps.
Yeah, and it takes us back into that space of beauty. And so that's why I think grief is such a beautiful process, because it takes us back into that raw, pure emotion of remembering, remembering that person for who we are, and so that we know that we're still living, because grief can send us so numb. And so when we have these emotions, we're then experiencing it, and then we know, oh, you know what, I'm really living this. I'm really living it. And you can come out just so transformed. But at the time, you can't. You don't realize it.
Yeah. You mentioned something about there's a lot of people maybe we don't like, and that touched a place in me. You've done that a couple different times in the show this evening, and so I'm excited but emotional as well. I had lost my mom, and that relationship was a lot better than the loss of a gentleman who I thought was my father. Long story short, I would call him a monster. He was very abusive physically, and he was, to me, and it was terrible. It was just terrible. But as the very first Mother's Day comes around, we get a call that morning that he has been beaten half to death. He's not dead yet, and we are his children. I'm still listed as his daughter. And I have nothing to do with this gentleman. This man, this monster that I called him. And I'm called to go. And I'd lost my mom but that last November. I go, and what you said about, what I saw in him at the very end of all of that, there was no I'm sorry. There was no yearning for me to connect with him or to ask whys or anything. But when he passed, I was able to see him as just another human being who had ups and downs, who had to have had a heart somewhere, some level. And I've never had that. It was the most powerful feeling ever. There wasn't I forgive you even. But it's kind of hard to describe when somebody's been so mean to you, how you can heal with them and connect even at that level.
And it's powerful, and I think that's what people get. And I cannot tell you the amount of times that I have done readings where I'll say, I've got your mother here, and they've gone, you can send her right back to where she came from. Hopefully it's a fiery pit. And I'm like, wow.
Wow.
And so I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't send them back to where they came from, because she has a message, and my job here is to deliver the message. And by the time that message has been delivered, they are absolutely exceptionally grateful that their mother has come through, and that it's been because the mother has apologized. The mother has asked for forgiveness. The mother has gone through the reasons why this has happened, their own healing journey. And what people don't realize is that just because a spirit comes through, it's actually that part of their healing journey as well, to come through and ask. They were not that person in life to ask for forgiveness or say I'm sorry. Then it's part of their journey in death to learn their lesson, to continue to grow. So therefore, it's part of their lesson to say, hey, I'm so sorry. I need to ask for your forgiveness. You may have already given it, but part of their lesson is their asking. And so therefore, a communication is twofold. It's not only to give you, the living person, the survivor, the ability to connect, but it's also gives the soul the ability to say the things that they never said that can actually help their soul evolve into the next being or to the next journey that they go on to.
My goodness. That's profound.
Right, Linda?
That is profound. You know, the root of all of this, Lisa, is the root of it is love. And
correct.
When people are in the darkness of grief, it's hard to remember anything else but that grief because it's overwhelming and it's crushing and it's so dark. And yet we're grieving because we loved that person so deeply. And you're moving into a kind of a new branch of your ministry. You do a variety of things. You've got your International School of Spiritual Development and, you know, hosting your own radio show and writing and all the different things that you do. But the root of what you do is love. Tell us more about what you have coming on the horizon that's around that, about that.
Well, you know, it is all about love, and it's all about communication and connection. So let's look at the communication, connection, and love. So as a medium, that is what I'm known to do. But I also think that we have to have those connections in life too. And so I want to, and I've been inspiring people for many, many years, just not even just while I've been well known for over the last 8 years. This has been something that I've done for years. And so therefore, communication, connection, and love is so important because I feel as though if we can connect with people on this earth plane, we can have a connection with them. We can create the communication with them, and we can talk, and we can bring in love. And so, therefore, I'm moving into a direction where it's not just about communicating with those who have passed on. It's actually learning how to connect with people who we need to connect with, have that soul connection, that communication, and bring about that love, whether or not you really like that person or not. I'm going to be able to help people see a way of bringing all of those three values into daily life right now. And it's something I've been doing as a psychic for many years. And let's face it, most people want to know about love, relationships, and things like that. And that's honestly where it's all stemmed from is, you know, I can look at a photograph of two people and go, yep, they're together, or no, they're not, or he's got issues, or she's got this, she's got that. So that's really where I'm focusing on, is helping people to have those connections, those communications, and love, but now in more of a daily life as well, not just with those that have passed away.
Right. Well, that makes sense because, you know, even though we've lost loved ones, we still have to live. We're still here.
Absolutely.
And so we have to find ways to keep on going. And love is almost like our food source. Love is the way, you know, that we,
It's food for the soul.
Right.
Love is food for the soul.
Well, I'm going to take this a step further, and I believe love is the root of everything. That's just my own personal belief. And, you know, yes, I've lost a daughter. I've walked grief, but I know that my heart can hold love at the same time as it holds that sorrow. And that love is actually what keeps me going, keeps me getting out of bed every morning and puts one foot in front of the other, is that love. Right. And, you know, in our own community this last week, we had a tragedy, and we're a small community, and so it affects us very profoundly because everyone knows each other, and everyone knew this wonderful teenage student who passed instantly in a car accident. And, you know, everyone is grieving pretty hard right now. And they're, you know, looking for sources of comfort and such. And
answers. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and you know there are no answers, and it's you want to tell them, you know, love will get you through this, I promise. But that's right now feels so foreign to them. So how do you use that, Lisa? How do you use that to someone who might still be in the dark trenches of profound grief? How do you use that love and gift it to them as a way to keep going?
Well, here's what I do: is I do a series of exercises with people, and I basically do this gratitude, and it's about gratitude for who that person was and what they loved about them, their favorite memories. Sometimes it can be quite thought-provoking, but also I ask people to think about what gift they have given them in their passing. So for instance, and I'm just going to give you an absolute example, one of my very dear friends, Joe, lost his wife a year ago to cancer. And I, he was going through his own grief, and, the anniversary of Jenny just came up. And he was in quite a bit of a space on that Tuesday when it was last a couple of weeks ago on Monday. And he said to me, I'm not sure how I'm going to get through this day. And I said, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to write a list of things that from Jenny's passing that you are grateful for now. And he went, well, the number one is bringing you into my life. And I said, so that's the list. And over the course of the day, he wrote a list of things that he was grateful for since Jenny's passing, and because of these things. And one of them was his relationship with his daughter, how he realized that if Jenny hadn't have passed, he would not be having the relationship that he now has with his daughter Julia. And so I think we've got to look at it in that way, because when we become so grief-stricken, it's all about us. It's all about us as a human. It's all about, oh my God, our emotion, and it's hard, it's painful, and it is. Oh my God, is it hit hard? But then when we look at other people and what that gift has done for other people and how we change it and how we can look at our life, it's quite incredible. And so that's what I got him to do. And he said that was the most profound exercise he'd ever done. And I think he was constantly texting me throughout that day going, here's another one, and here's another one, and here's another one. And it was wonderful, absolutely wonderful to see.
Wow.
I think when my mom passed
for him, by opening that door for him, you allowed him to have that heart that filled with the gratitude for all the memories that she left him with, and the gifts that she left him with of his favorite thing and this and that and the other. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Sorry, Angie, go ahead.
I was saying that it's tonight. You're new and you've lost a parent or whoever. I would have never said this before when I'm in the early days of grieving, and I pinch myself because I'm saying it and I feel it, is that when my mom passed, just as an example of one of the losses, is that it took that loss to change relationships within our family dynamics that pushed us together, even our siblings. The siblings that were not close, the one, my sister and I were completely, we're really opposite, still are, but we became closer and closer as days went on, and still are doing that. And when my mom was basically, is in heaven, my sister learned about mom through me, and I learned about mom through her, and we would have never had that relationship if my mom would have been there.
Well said.
It's been completely mind-blowing, some of the moments we have shared. She even said to me, and I think she won't mind this, she said, Angie, sometimes I wish I was the oldest so I could have had the experiences that you had. Thank you for sharing them with me.
Oh, beautiful.
And I told her, I said, thank you, Megan. I said, sometimes I wish I was the baby and the one, because she treated us differently. It's not a bad thing. But so we both were in my mother's life in a different way. And so as my mom's removed, I found out things about my mother that I never knew, and vice versa. And so that makes sense because love grew out of that. So powerful.
Very powerful, very powerful. So, Lisa, we've got about 10 minutes left, and I want to ask a few questions that I know you probably are asked all the time. And I'm certain that, a lot of our listeners are wondering these same questions. So I'm just going to go ahead and ask them for the benefit of our listeners. How do we know if our loved one is okay on the other side?
You know what? I get asked this question all the time.
Let me say that some people have some beliefs about, let's say, suicide. Mm-hmm. Some believe, that suicide is a sin, and so if you commit suicide, if you die by suicide, that you're not going to be in heaven. And so that's one of the things that we hear a lot. And so what's your thought about that?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I wrote a lot about this in my book, Survival of the Soul, because, I deal with a lot of suicide survivors, and I deal with a lot of people who want to commit suicide as well. And it's interesting because I don't believe that that it's a sin. I believe that it's their way. That I also believe in my mind that our lives are mapped out. And that we are mapped out to pass in a certain way. Everything's mapped out in a certain direction, and our passing is already mapped out. So if we are meant to pass as a suicide, then we will pass as a suicide, because we are there to teach and learn and journey, and other people will learn from us. Okay, because I think we're all on a learning experience. So I don't believe that we're on a suicide. That we are here to pass. I don't believe that suicides go to a different space at all. And so therefore, are our loved ones okay? We have to take it for granted that they are. And the reason why I say that is because I don't believe in all of my experiences, and I've done thousands upon thousands upon thousands of readings, that I have ever had an experience where I've actually said to somebody, they're upset, they're worried, they're concerned, they hate it here. Because when a soul crosses, and I've had a near-death experience, but when a soul crosses, all they feel is unconditional, overpowering love. And it's beautiful. And we meet up with people that we have experienced in previous lives, in our incarnations of different situations, in our incarnation in this life. And so therefore we are reunited with love. We go back to the source. We're in this space of home. That it's almost like the only way I can explain it, when we all have that moment where we just want to put on our comfy slippers, our comfy pajamas, and veg in our bed and eat popcorn and watch movies, okay?
Oh, yeah.
That is our comfort, okay? That is that comfort. And that is that love. So that's all that we're doing, is we're going back, we're resorting back into that space of love and that comfort of eating popcorn, putting our pajamas on and watching a movie. It is going back into that space of home for them. So, yes.
Okay, so let me ask one more question that I know is asked a lot. And in fact, in response to our community tragedy, we had a community event the following evening where we gathered and talked about it. And one of the questions posed to me was, did that student suffer? And I want to share with you a little bit real quick, and then I want to hear your answer. Our daughter passed 5 years ago in a car accident, and she was 15 in the back seat, and she died instantly. And some months after that, because of course as a parent, you're thinking, oh my gosh, did she suffer? Did she cry out for me? And I wasn't there in her last breath. And a lot of guilt can get caught up in that. And I believe my daughter gave me the vision, or God gave me the vision. Someone gave me the vision where all she saw was just bright headlights, and that was it. She felt no pain. So when the question was posed to me in the community event, did he feel any pain? I answered based upon my belief. I said, absolutely not. Absolutely not. My belief is that, my daughter popped out of her body right before the impact, so she didn't feel a thing. What is your thought about that?
You have explained it absolutely right, because, again, in my book, I talk about that, how the soul and the body are pulled apart immediately. Seconds before impact, seconds before the passing. So therefore, the body takes the impact, the soul doesn't take the impact.
Okay.
So the soul goes, oh, I didn't feel a thing, yet the body goes, boom, it takes the impact. So absolutely, the soul doesn't feel it. because it's whipped out of the body so quickly, so powerfully, that it doesn't remember these things. And that's when death happens.
Yeah, and that falls in line with the fact that the moment our time to go is mapped out, and so that actually gave me a lot of comfort when I got that vision and knew without a doubt in my heart that she had no pain at all. That brought me a lot of comfort. And someone asked me after that event, how could you answer that so strongly? And I didn't want to go into that. I didn't want to, share that my own daughter had given me a vision and all that, because that's not something that people are comfortable, discussing readily.
Of course.
And but it brought me a lot of comfort to know that she didn't suffer. And to this day, I'm grateful for that little vision. And so for any parents out there listening, I know that that's something that plays on our heart a lot. Oh my gosh, did they, cry out for me, that, or, this, that, or the other. So thank you for confirming that, because that's a huge, profound belief that can be life-changing in the aftermath of loss.
Absolutely.
Is knowing that your loved one didn't suffer. So, And I know that doesn't address those that have an illness and then pass. I understand, that quite a few illnesses put them in a lot of pain and such. But, if they chose that way to go for different lessons to be learned, there's still blessings that can be brought from that, no matter what. And I am a firm believer that there are blessings in every tragedy. And we may not see them, for quite a while, because we're in great pain and great distress. But over time, and with your heart opening up, there are blessings. And I've had them myself with my own profound loss. And just like you said, Angie, some beautiful things that would not have arisen had it not been for your mom passing. So so thank you for that, Lisa. I think that's really, really important. But so we need to wrap up here. We're running out of time. And Lisa, I just want to say thank you for joining us on Grief Diaries Radio and, sharing a little bit of your backstory, because, all too often most people, they just want to know, are the loved one okay? And, we don't often get an opportunity to hear, about you and your experiences and your beliefs. So thank you very much. If you want to connect with Lisa, you can go to her website, lisawilliams.com. And she also has the Soul Connection. So do check out, and also her spiritual school. So check out her other website, LWI, S as in Sam, S as in Sam, D as in dog, .com. She's also on Facebook at Lisa Williams Medium, and she's on Twitter, LW Medium. So that's it for tonight. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us. Safe travels to you as you take off over the next few weeks, jump the pond over to Europe, and continue your beautiful work. We look forward to having you. Yeah, and safe travels back. We look forward to seeing you at the National Grief and Hope Convention 2015 in April in Indianapolis. And for our listeners that want to come see Lisa, she will be conducting her business there, as well as giving a keynote speech and a workshop. So do come see Lisa at the National Grief and Hope Convention. Join us next week as we talk with Richard Lee, a two-time Grammy Award-winning songwriter with over 14 #1 hits. He's got a profound story of tragedy and fame, he became an orphan from suicide, homicide when he was just a wee boy. And he's going to share a story with us next week here on Grief Diaries. So join us same time, same place next week on Grief Diaries Radio. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Thank you, Lisa. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Good night, ladies.
The Grief Diaries radio show is brought to you by Alley Blue Media and Good Grief Worldwide, an official partner of National Grief Awareness Day, working to bring grief out of the darkness into the light. For more information about Grief Diaries or to listen to archived episodes, please visit www.griefdiaries.com.